Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised.
I shot The Shining,
Jesus Christ.
but I didn't shoot any other movies on the list.
Yeah.
Welcome to Travelers on the Omnibus, a field trip through nerd and pop culture. I am your host this evening, Jody Kite, followed by...
I'm James McCarthy.
I'm Brady Davis.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
Well, we are back again, gentlemen, after our chalkboard episode of the
Fuck you,
top
Ethan.
5 horror movies of all
you,
time.
Brady.
Why did we sit them directly next to one another?
I think they voluntarily sat next to each other.
Oh, hell.
It doesn't matter. I'd be telling him, fuck him, even if he was sitting
No,
across
no,
from me.
No.
He
You're
can
not-
go back up to Jackson, and then he texts me, "Hey, Ethan, fuck you."
There you go.
No, that's way too much effort.
You're gonna
I have to
do-
spend all that time hating the company that I work for.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have time to.
He only has enough time to hate one thing
Yeah, I
or
have a
entity.
symposium that I have to go to. Thank you very much.
Hey, Ethan, what have you been up to?
Me. So apparently I've gotten on the shit list of Gautier, Mississippi again.
Uh-oh.
I'm certain that you deserved it.
That's why I picked him first, because I knew you were going to just rip into him immediately.
Yeah.
So going back in time a little bit, we all know that I had some vehicle difficulties with my previous vehicle. The tire blew out. and all
Long-time
that.
listeners of the show will know this.
Yes.
This is established canon.
You can't really dispose of tires all that well. You'd have to go to like a junkyard or like a car yard and just give the tires to them. So I've just had the tire wrapped inside my trash cans for all this time. So like 3-4-ish months. Apparently, the city of Gautier gave us a notice saying that if I don't move my tire, I'm going to be fined. And apparently, this is the second time I've been told.
Gautier hates you. Jesus.
I wasn't told the first time.
Ugh.
You should move it on the
That's
other side
crazy.
of the house.
I don't know. I'm making a point to not move it.
Oh,
Are you
Fight the power.
that's a weak way to fight the power.
These are the same people that said I couldn't park in my own yard.
Well, you kind of couldn't. Just saying. I dropped you off at your house one night.
I'm pretty sure you can also drop off tires at any Walmart with a body. You know, the tire and lube shit.
With a mechanic shop.
Yeah, tire and
in
lube.
the
That's what I
back.
was thinking of.
I'm pretty sure I could, but it's like.
But now it's the principle.
Yeah. Like, why do they care?
The man is
on
trying
what,
to keep you down.
why,
Fuck them.
Why
Yeah.
do they care on what I keep in my own yard? It's not harming anything. It's up against my house and my trash cans.
if you
It's
leave
not
it
harming
right
anything.
next to the road in your yard, someone will probably pick it up for you.
Probably so. But yeah, nothing really except that Gautier hates me and I hate Gautier.
Oh, cool.
Also, the fact that they will not fix my road I primarily drive on.
There's no way to fix that road. I've been down that road. There's no way to do it.
Oh, it's gotten worse since you drove me.
It was like a month ago. What the? How?
They have barricades on only one side of the road.
Are you sure there
I
isn't
know
a zombie?
where you're talking about.
Are you sure there isn't a zombie infestation down that thing? And they're just not telling anybody?
I'm pretty sure half of Gautier is just zombie
Is
population.
zombie populated? Okay.
I actually had a family who lived down that way. A couple of families actually. Yeah, that road is garbage.
Is absolute dog shit, and I hate it.
Well, they're doing it for to widen the road to make it all nice for
Yes,
everybody.
because the last thing we need is a sidewalk
Yeah.
and a bike lane. When's the last time you saw someone ride a bike down?
Well, it's because they don't have a bike lane.
Exactly. They need to
Yeah.
have the bike lane first.
You have the bike lane, and the bikes come.
I will say the bikes come.
Let's sit
The
with
bikes
that one.
come, Ethan.
Yeah.
Well, that was very interesting. Brady, what have you been up to?
Oh, it's me. I haven't been doing very much. Did my yearly watch of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Halloween. I usually try and get that one in. I also usually try and get Nightmare Before Christmas in, but I didn't get that one in. I guess I'll save it for my Christmas watch.
Yeah, it works for both.
Yeah. Also, the only thing I've really done is I finished a book that I was reading, the book 2 in the John Dies at the End series by Jason Pargin. The name of the book is This Book is Full of Spiders. Seriously, dude, don't open it. It's pretty good. I like it. I need to continue with it. I think the next one's called What the Hell Did I Just Read? And then he's got a new one that just came out called If You're Reading This book, you're in the wrong universe.
These are some solid book titles.
Yes, he has very good book titles. Yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it. If you like comedy, but like kind of with some cosmic horror in it, basically like two idiots constantly have to like save the world from like horrible things happening. And with this one, it's a parasite infestation of invisible spiders that take over people.
It's like Dale and Tucker versus Evil, but
sort of kind of, yeah,
cosmic.
I wouldn't even say it's like similar humor, but they're good. They're really funny. Jason Pargin is a really good writer. He used to be one of the top guys at the Cracked website, and I kind of still, since that website's sort of kind of defunct because they fired all the people who were actually doing all the good work. Basically all of their podcasts and stuff, I still, they're each individual's work I still listen to and watch and stuff. So I know a lot about him because he's on all of their podcasts because all he does is write now. But it's a good one. I'm probably going to eventually get the second one. I don't know what the hell I'm going to read next really because Brandon Sanderson also has a new book out that I need to read. So continuing in the Mistborn series. So
I've heard good things about that series. I need to start reading it.
Brandon Sanderson is great. The Mistborn, like, there's like two sections, like the original Mistborn trilogy is like more high fantasy, and then he like pushes things forward to where it's like a turn of the century type thing. So you have still like the same magic system and everything, but like there's cars and people are inventing like radio and things. Like it's literally like turn of the century stuff. So he's got like two sections right now, and I think he's eventually going to do like a futuristic one is what he said, but that's kind of in the air.
Right.
But yeah, his new book's out and I need to read that because I really do like that series. I like everything that I've read from him. I really like. But
right.
That's all I've been doing.
Okay.
Not too much.
Jay, what have you been up to, man?
So, shout out to one of my favorite YouTubers in the world, Mandalore Gaming. He got me onto a video game that I've been having a lot of fun with. It's called Duskers. If anybody's ever played FTL, Faster Than Light, it's kind of the same premise in that you're going from place to place and having encounters, but instead of having encounters in your ship versus other ships, you're docking with derelict spaceships and sending drones in to search those ships to find why you're the only human being alive in the universe. So it's very scary. It's got a very I would say alien vibe as far as the technology goes, to the point where like you can't use your mouse in the game. It's all keyboard commands, and it's very unique and interesting. I wish I had brought my laptop up here because I wanted to show you guys, particularly you, Jody, as far as the horror element of what's going on in there. It's
I love that kind of stuff.
It's so good. It's so good, and that's pretty much it because my Spelljammer crew couldn't do anything this week, but they had a good reason.
Sag.
Yeah, it's a two-man crew right now. One of them was driving along behind a truck that had drywall in the back, and then the drywall came out of the truck.
Oh no!
And then struck his vehicle. He's fine. He's physically fine.
That's good.
His vehicle is
not fine.
Fucked.
Yeah.
Fuct. Fucked.
Yikes.
So yeah, if normally I'm mad when I can't run a Spelljammer game, I wasn't too mad at this one.
I'm always paranoid when I get behind somebody and they're like have something in their truck, or like I got behind some people who are like had washers and dryers.
Shout out to Final Destination 2 for making all lumber trucks free and clear of anything around.
After watching that movie, you cannot pass. Every single time I pass a truck with logs or any kind of like, I had telephone poles the other day, and I was like, let me get past this really fast. Let me speed the hell up.
Thank you for putting the fear in all of America.
Yeah.
That's not a fear. That's just a good lesson.
Yeah.
Just if you're behind a lumber truck, bad things happen.
Or just any semi with anything open in the back.
Anything, but particularly lumber trucks.
Oh yeah.
That was a great kill ratio there in that first one. That was great.
That was the second one that had the log truck thing.
Yeah, the first couple.
I was talking about like
good.
The first minutes of that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
Yeah, that's the Final Destination 2. That beginning sequence is like probably one of the best.
Oh yeah.
I love those first two, and then it's just like, okay, everyone always dies, so there's no tension because everyone dies.
It's just the gimmick that from now on. It's how can we come up with elaborate ways for these people to die?
Yeah.
And if you remember, like the first one, not all of them were very elaborate. Some of them, like you had one where it's just the chick got hit by the bus.
Right.
That teacher kill, however, took like 20 minutes to set up.
Yeah. I like the setup on some of those, but yeah, that for a movie series that was already off the rails when it started, it went kind of,
The like twist of like the last one that they did was interesting. I didn't watch it, but I heard about it.
Well, that's the only way, because you named the movie previous to it The Final Destination. So how do you do a sequel? Oh, I know. You make it the first one in the chronology.
Yeah, it's secretly a prequel.
Spoilers.
They survive. The people who survive, and then they get on the plane.
Oh,
that takes place in the first
I
movie.
like that though. That's kind of
Yeah,
nice.
it's cool.
No, I think it was a great idea. It's just that, like, again, like after the first two, the punch is done.
Yeah,
Everybody dies. So there's no, like, you can't root for anybody because none of them are going to make it. So all you're doing is like, how can they just elaborately kill these people?
Right.
Yeah, it's just after you get tired of the gimmick, like it doesn't give you anything.
The gymnast kill in that one was just
I like the I can't remember which one the bridge scene was in. Was that the third one?
That was the second one.
Was the second one?
You're talking
yeah. Yeah, Final Destination.
That was a good one. Yodi, what have you been up to?
Oh, thanks, Jay. Actually, I've been up to a couple of things. So I recently have been watching the Guillermo del Toro. I butchered his name.
Guillermo.
Yeah.
Do you smell toast?
Yeah.
Are we starting with the stroking already?
Yes, that's
Okay,
exactly.
there we go.
Whoa. Your side of the table. All right, so
Come, Jody.
his new show on Netflix called Cabinet of Curiosities.
I've been meaning to watch this.
I've watched the first 2 episodes. Pretty good. I get like not in the same like sort of like goofy, corny, Tales from the Crypt episodes. Some of those were a little bit more serious. But I get kind of like, the Tales from the Dark Side anthology kind of feel from it, The first episode, and this is not really a spoiler. I guess it kind of is, but I mean, you can kind of, if you're watching a horror anthology series, you're going to, if a guy's being a dick for no reason, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so this guy, he's down in his luck. I can't remember the name of the character actor, but it's a character actor that's been in a couple of things. He's the guy that was in the Ballad of Buster Scruggs show.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
He was also an old brother. We're out there.
Yeah. Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah. He's
fucking great.
He's the main dude here, and he works for a guy who runs storage units, and he's down on his luck, and he's like, help me out. And he's like, hey man, the storage unit, like this lady's been like, she hasn't paid for a month or whatever, and you can buy it for like super cheap. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And he buys the unit. And she shows up immediately afterwards. He's like, fuck off. And then he goes in there and he finds something. And
this one was actually written by Del Toro.
I believe it. I
watched him and Mike Flanagan, who did Midnight Mass and Dr. Sleep.
I need to watch Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass is phenomenal. But they like had a conversation with each other. It's really good. You can look it up on YouTube. It's like a Netflix thing, where they just talked about horror, and it was really, really insightful. And he said, like, he talked about 2 that he wrote, and that was one of them. There's one about birds that he also wrote.
So yeah, I'm digging that. Only 2 episodes in, but it's probably like 8 or 10 episodes. And also horror related, I watched a YouTube video on Nightmare on Elm Street knockoffs.
Okay.
And there were a lot, so I can't really recant any of the names, but the channel is pretty good. I can't remember the name of the channel either, but if you look up like Nightmare on Elm Street knockoffs, it'll come up. And one of the most interesting things I found out was like in 1986, there were 183 horror movies released.
Wow.
I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I had no idea. But
that's how hard Friday the 13th hit.
Yeah.
That's the,
right.
Just the conveyor belt that they just made of it.
Yeah, there was a couple ones I do remember. Bad Dreams was one. There was a lot of them that kind of like started after like the third Nightmare, because that whole like Dream Warriors kind of vibe really gave people a lot of ideas on how to like utilize like fighting dreams and things like that.
Yeah, horror is one of those genres where like if something succeeds, then people jump on the bandwagon.
Right, they either copycat it or like Final Destination, they run it into the ground whenever they come up with an interesting IP. So I watched that. That was really good. I've been playing a couple video games. I went on a couple hours more into Guardians of the Galaxy and have discovered that game is extremely boring and I don't like it.
You were high on that at the start.
Yeah.
Did it taper off that bad?
Well, the thing is, like, the game starts with you're in my brain just shut up. Peter Quill's bedroom. He's like, a kid, before the the alien abduction happens, and it's the 80s, but it's set in like the mid 80s, which is kind of weird because like in the comics and in the movie, like it's like the early 80s.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that there's like a lot of like, heavy metal posters and shit like that up that are like, 85, 86 kind of thing. But you're in his room and you get to like, look through everything and it's like, read a comic book and you read a comic book and you look on the wall and there's like a poster and it gives you all these details of the band and things like that. And that was really neat. And then you start getting into the gameplay, but that takes a little bit to actually start getting into actual gameplay because like new games, they got to baby step you into it.
Yeah.
With sort of like hand holding tutorials and things like that, and you get outside of it, and it just like I'm not used to a game like that being as linear as it is, and I think that's part of it. But it's very like predictable in what's happening, and it's not just the the characters and the story of everything. It's just like how everything goes. Go here, find this thing. All these enemies show up, and now you gotta like you gotta kill them, and then the action keeps stopping for like story stuff, and it's very jarring. I might continue to play it, but right now it's like I don't know. It's just not working for me very much. And I've started working on a campaign for a Cypher game.
Oh, okay.
Based off of the podcast for the Old Gods of Appalachia. But it's going to be based off, New Gods of Natchez, Mississippi or some shit like that.
Okay.
So, that way I don't have to remember shit. I could just make my own shit up and it's easier for me to remember it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm working on doing that. And that's all I've been up to really, recently.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Jay, do we have any feedback from any passengers?
We have passenger feedback this week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being passengers on our wild and crazy omnibus. If you would like to bring other people in on board, we greatly appreciate it. And if they do not have the same stuff you are listening this podcast on, then you can catch us on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Anchor.
Saga.
Email travelers on the omnibus at gmail.com. Again, that is travelers 1L on the omnibus at gmail.com. Also Twitter on Traveler Omnibus, because when I tried to put the whole word in, it was travelers on the ooh, and it just doesn't work. So
until Elon starts trying to make us pay for Twitter.
Well, no,
Yeah.
Right now,
We're not getting a blue check.
We're never getting a check mark.
That's fine.
It's just the way it is. But another way, if you'd like to get in touch with us, that is at Traveler Omnibus.
Also, directly message us on Spotify.
I was about to prompt you for that. I didn't need to do that. So very good, very good. So we have one piece of feedback this week. It is from a dear friend of the show and of us, Kevin Gallo, a.k.a. Ronan Rooster on Twitch, and Kevin Gallo on YouTube. Catch them along with Silence Your Cell Phones and a few of our other friends as they play through Cyberpunk Red, the tabletop version of the Cyberpunk role-playing series.
Oh.
So very good. So we have two pieces of feedback from him. First, for Brady, this is in reference to your character in the role-playing game that you're playing with Whiskey and Wrestling. So the whole podcast crew is just playing role-playing games everywhere. It's great. And can you tell Brady he basically just made Drax?
Yeah, he eventually. Yeah, I'm aware of this.
Yes, you are aware.
In fact, Caitlin said like you're like Drax, and it just kind of morphed into that as we were going because it was funny.
Yeah,
because I do stuff during D&D games to entertain myself mostly.
Yes.
Number one, and that was entertaining. So it was funny. So get off my case. Everybody steals. Nobody comes up with a.
There are no longer
with a character in D&D that is wholly their own. It's always you take pieces from something else.
I had a wholly original wizard. He dressed all in blue, and his name was Wellminster. It was fucking great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was, instead of all red like Elminster, it was all blue. So that's what makes it unique.
I don't know who Elminster is.
He's basically a knockoff of Gandalf.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Except he wears red instead of white or gray, depending on the timeline.
Nice.
Second bit from Kevin goes, quote, and I was the one that shared the CG player article about the continuation of Netrunner through that, which I'm glad you shared it, Kevin. Mea culpa for claiming that Chris Gomez did that. So I apologize for that, sir. But also, I'll let you know, I didn't share it with the guys after the podcast, like I said during the last podcast.
Yeah,
so
you didn't do that.
It's okay. So on this one, I might. That way, if I don't, I've not written myself.
Yes, we apologize for giving Christopher Gomez credit for.
Yeah, sorry about that. How them eyes, Gomez?
That was our
Gomi.
How them eyes, Gomez?
Well,
we need to get Chris on the show so I can shoot him in the eyes again.
He only comes out like it has to be one of our birthdays. That's it. That's the only way that he comes out and is around us.
We should just offer him.
Even though like
lattes.
he it's not like he moved like across the fucking country.
He didn't at all. He's literally in the same building.
Yes.
We should just make pumpkin spice latte night at the shop.
If we did
he'll
that,
show up, and then I'll shoot him in the eyes.
He would definitely show up.
Tell him that I was banned from the shop. Then he'll get all of it. He'll have like, we got to get pumpkin spice lattes.
He'll never believe that though.
He will. Just because
if other people couldn't get you banned,
you tell him. You tell him that, and just come up with horrible things that I did.
I don't like lying to my friends. I'm only okay with lying to complete strangers during Blood on the Clock Tower.
Blood on the Cock Tower.
Yeah,
don't play that game. That's a very bad game.
That sounds like someone wasn't told about something.
That sounds like Pain Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Blood on the Cock Tower.
Could be Pain Olympics. Could be.
We should do the episode on Pain Olympics right now. Let's swap from our original idea to Pain Olympics.
I didn't do any research on that.
No.
I was expecting
our main topic tonight is
Pain Olympics. So, when your scrotum is presented with a nail and hammer, what
the history
Jesus Christ.
of Metroidvania games. What is a Metroidvania game? Well, I'll tell you, sort of. There are different games that preceded what started this sub-genre of games. Some people like to say that the Atari 2600 game Adventure has Metroidvania qualities, and they wouldn't be completely wrong because of what you have to do in that game. Metroidvania games typically are games in which you have to progress in a certain way, get certain items, and even typically do backtracking to be able to progress further and further and further to get farther into it. And the title of that sub-genre comes from two games, Castlevania and Metroid. Castlevania, which in America came out in March of 1987, and Metroid in August of 1987. The first Castlevania game was very linear, 100% linear platformer, which you did have to have specific items to get through certain bosses to beat the game. But when you got to Dracula, I don't think you had to have anything specific to beat Dracula.
You could have just your whip through the entire game and be able to get through it.
You could. It's easier.
It makes it easier
to have certain things.
And with the Dracula boss fight, which was a 2-stage boss fight, having the cross on the first end made that fight easier, and then having the holy water on the second part, which going into the fight, you could pick up the cross right before going into it. And then in the candelabra that is to the back, that's where the holy water was kept. And basically what you would do is you try to avoid hitting that one. And
right.
You'd use the boomerang cross to take out his head, and then once that was eliminated, you go pick up the holy water and then finish off. You also have to make sure you stockpiled on your hearts to make sure that you had enough ammo to go through it.
Right.
But you could do it all with your whip, and if you did, that was
ballsy.
That's a badge of that's a badge of courage.
That game's already nearly impossible anyway. And then Metroid is actually in itself a Metroidvania game, because in Metroid, if you wanted to survive the boss fight, the final boss especially, you had to find like many hidden energy tanks that gave you more hit points, basically.
Well, and particularly you had to find missile tanks, because you had to have missiles to get to the final boss, and you had to have missiles to kill the final boss. If
Yes,
you didn't do
because
that, you couldn't do it.
missiles. There are missiles in the game that, like, certain doors you just could use your, like, standard pea shooter to get through, but some of the doors had a red shield on them, and you had to have missiles to get through them. And so if you ran out of missiles, you had to go farm enemies to try and get missiles in order to get through the door. But once you unlocked the door, it was unlocked for the rest of the game. And so those two series combined basically inspired a lot of other games that have similar qualities. In fact, I think it's like, some of these games, especially the ones that came out during the same time period, obviously weren't inspired by Castlevania or Metroid because whoever was making these games were already making the games at the time. But games that came out around the same time period, and also, real quick before I do that, Simon's Quest, the second Castlevania game, had Metroidvania elements to it because you could go back and forth in certain areas, and you had to have certain items to progress.
And just for me, arguing outside of Simon's Quest, nothing before Symphony of the Night for me is
I was
falls
just
in
about to-
Metroidvania.
And we will get to that.
I knew it was getting, but generally it's considered like when it begins to be Metroidvania. It's Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So, like, also,
I wanted to stop an email from happening.
Right. Yeah.
Those weren't Metro. Yes, we know that.
Yeah, we
that.
understand. We understand.
This is how history works.
But
You have
yes.
to lay groundwork.
So other games, I'm not going to mention all of them that came out on the NES during that time period, were Blaster Master in 1988, which had a similar kind of thing where you had to get items to progress.
Sunsoft was very good with taking an idea and iterating on it where it got a little bit more complicated and it worked. That one is where it got, for me, a little too complicated.
It was
because
very complicated.
You have the tank sections, and then you have sections where you have to get out of the tank, and then go into, and then you're in a completely different view that's closer in on your character, and that's where you would fight the boss monsters.
Right.
If the game were just the tank sections, that game would be amazing.
I agree. It gets a little clunky when you do the top-down 2D super over isometric shit going on there. Clash at Demon Head in 89.
Which was the name of the band.
I was just about to say this.
Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That game was mega complicated.
Yeah.
That game was meant for teens and young adults because that's when you can understand what the fuck's going on in that game.
And then before we move on, Strider, I have to mention Strider that came out in 89. I think it had a lot of elements that Symphony of the Night will
This is the
have.
first one that you've mentioned that I actually know.
Yeah.
I would say
besides the Castlevania and Metroid games.
I would say for crazy boss fights, yeah, I would say, and I would put the Genesis version of Strider over Strider for the NES in that. Regard.
Yeah, I would have to agree, and I think Strider was originally an arcade game.
Yeah. I never got to play Strider, but I know him from like the Marvel vs. Capcom games.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, oh, this is a cool character.
Right. Well, Strider will be mentioned later as well. So after we have all that, we have some Super Nintendo games and some more Genesis games and so forth. But really, getting to the meat and the bones of everything is Symphony of the Night really starts off the subgenre of Metroidvania games. Jay, tell us about Symphony of the Night.
I disagree with what you said. It starts with Super Metroid. It properly starts with Super Metroid.
Yeah, that's true.
Super Metroid has everything Metroid had, except you also have, in my opinion, crazier boss fights. This is when the boss fights really get good.
Right.
The Kraid and Ridley fight almost feel like the same fight. It's just how you have to dodge the projectiles.
Right.
Kraid and Ridley in Super Metroid are a completely different boss fight. Same thing with Fantoon. Same thing with the one that sounds like Anguirus that's in the water section. I can't remember the name of it.
I can't either. It's been a long time.
I love the variety of different zones. That's also when you start getting into different places have different feels to them.
Right.
You have Meridia, like Norfair and Brintstar. Honestly, again, they're kind of the same. It's just one is rocky with acid, and the other one has clouds for some reason, but lava. They all do the same thing to you. It's a much different environment. Like you have to have the Varia suit in Norfair in the hot areas, or else you're just going to just burn up and die.
Right. Do you consider Super Castlevania 4 on the SNES? No, I don't either. It's a platformer.
It's the perfection of the original Castlevania style. It's to me, you're going back to Castlevania 1, except
Right.
now in that game, I would almost say to a point they made your whip so strong you'd never need your secondary
I'd have to
weapons.
agree with that. I mean, you could just flail it up. It goes in all directions.
Yep. And you
360.
If the enemy was weak, you just hold the button down, you just hold the thing, and then
it would
just
just
run
keep-
into your
yeah.
chain, just boom, it's just
Right.
dead. So I respect and I like Super Castlevania
Right.
for it, but to me again,
It's not a Metroidvania
You got to have
game.
the backtracking,
Right. Backtracking is important.
You got to have story beats and story points that happen in game.
Mm-hmm.
That it starts mildly in Super Metroid, like the baby Metroid saving
Mm-hmm.
you. Hell, just the original the opening is like the last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace, and then you get the type in out and that haunting Super
Right.
Metroid music, which has stayed with
The music
series,
is great, yeah.
which
Yeah.
has stayed with the series for forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot. You don't need to know the story for Metroid.
No, you don't.
But knowing the story for Super Metroid to me enhances that game.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's some story beats in there, like when you find the baby Metroid again, he's a giant Metroid, but he recognizes you as his mother, things like that. I think that's where you start getting story element, and then it's just perfected in Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
Because that game is just high story.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
by
yeah.
that I mean you need to be on all Wiitos.
Oh, yeah.
To follow what's it?
I think another thing about Metroid.
I have to do this.
Okay.
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world. It was not by my hand that I was once again given flesh. I was brought here by humans that wish to pay me tribute. Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them your slaves. Perhaps the same could be said of all religions. And it just fine. And then and then the crescendo is, what is a man?
Yeah.
A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. Have at you.
And then
Good stuff,
all of your
good
weapons
stuff.
get taken away.
No. Then you beat him.
Yes.
You have to beat him.
Right.
And then you become Alucard.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
all your shit
you
gets taken.
fight 4 wargs, and then death just takes all your shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
What?
That happens. That's a trope that happens in Metroidvania. Is you start out really, really powerful, and then you get just a taste. You get the tiniest taste, and then they take it all away, and then you have to earn it all back.
Right.
But I think another thing that really sets a Metroidvania, like Metroid from like Super Metroid and like the original Castlevanias from Castlevania, is like the big winding map, like the huge map where there's multiple ways to go through things, and like you'll pass by an area and you'll see you can't get to it, but then later you'll get something from a boss that lets you get to this area, and that's where the backtracking comes from. But this huge map that has multiple ways to go through different things.
OG Metroid had so much backtracking, especially if you didn't know what you were doing. Oh my lord. But Symphony of the Night, and then there were mini sequels to that on Game Boy Advance,
Game
like
Boy-
Aria of Sorrow.
Aria of Sorrow. Was it Aria or was Aria the one on the Game Boy Advance? Which one
There
was
were
the
a
one?
couple on Game Boy Advance.
But then the
Aria
one was
Sorrow
for
there.
the 3DS. That was the one that I played. Which was a direct sequel to that. That one was really good in some ways, but really shit in other ways. It had like that. Those two games, the original and the sequel, they're both named about the same thing, so I can't remember exactly which one is which.
There's Harmony of Dissonance.
Harmony of Dissonance was more of a standard Castlevania Symphony of the Night game.
Right.
Aria of Sorrow messed with the format because you had this like soul system to where like when you defeated enemies, you got their souls and they gave you different powers, and some were more common than others, and you killed more of them to get souls, and like they gave you different abilities that you could equip and different things like that.
That felt greatly to me just an evolution of the familiar system that was in Symphony.
Sort of, kind of, yeah.
Where you collect the familiars, and then as you use them, they would level up with you.
Yeah.
Whereas this was more hands-on, like you're literally feeding yourself the ability.
Yeah, like every
to
enemy
do these
could
things.
give you a soul, and they all had powers that they could give you, but there was like a percentage of, if you kill this thing, maybe you'll get a soul, maybe you won't. Every boss gave you a soul and gave you a power.
Right.
The DS one this was early in the DS, so it had this really, really dumb thing to where when you fought a boss, right when you were about to kill it, a sigil came up on your little touch screen, and you had to like put in the correct lines to draw the sigil to finally banish it, or else like it got a little bit more health and then you had to beat it all over and then you had to fight it all over again. And it was really annoying because you worked really hard to fight this boss, and then you fucked it up because they got more and more complicated. Like
the annoying part for me is I've done this great like platforming, semi-platforming action fight, which to me is also a hallmark. These are all action games. Some they don't necessarily, in my opinion, have to be 2D, but the majority of them are.
Right.
But yeah, you've done this awesome 2D boss fight, and now you have this scribble mini game.
Yeah. You had to, so like you're playing with just like the D-pad and your buttons, and then all of a sudden you have to pull out your stylus real quick and draw on this shit. And they had a lot of like little gimmick. That was early in the DS where it was just like, can we fit touch gimmick into this? And that kind of made it lesser. But it was also, that was one of my favorite actual Castlevania games that I played.
I never got to play any of the ones on the Advance or the 3DS. So
that's most of the Castlevanias that I played are on the Advance, and they're all pretty solid.
Right.
There was one called Portrait of Ruin that I really liked. It broke it up because you went into different portraits, and those were the levels. So that's where you got all the big winding levels. But then you had like a smaller hub area that you would spend time in too.
So besides Symphony of the Night and all of its sequels during that time period, Jay, do you remember any other games on that platform or maybe the 3DS that kind of had that kind of feel to it?
Well, not on that, but I'll go back to the first syllable of it again. I'd like to talk about Metroid Fusion, which to me is a little bit more linear than what we're looking for in the Metroidvania style. But again, that's more so along the lines with story beats and honestly, one of the best horror villains in video gaming history in Samus X, which just is this constant thing that you cannot beat but is always chasing you. Yeah. I think they knocked it out of the park with that. I think it falls solidly in Metroidvania again for the narrative that they push in that. And I just think it's a tremendous game, and one that I don't think gets a lot of credit. I think a lot of both Metroid 2 and Metroid 4 I don't think get the credit they deserve for being part of this series that I think has, I won't say revolutionized, but it's definitely got more heart and story to it than I think it ever gets credit for.
Right. I'd have to agree with that. Ethan, I know you've been quiet for the past few minutes.
It's not that I'm choosing to be quiet. Like I don't have as much like history with this this genre of video games, like Metroid and Castlevania.
Because we're old.
And as Brady says, I'm a wee baby. I'm a wee.
No, that's not how he says it. What? How does Brady? How do you say it?
I'm not giving him that satisfaction.
He's a little baby.
Yeah. That's more Australian style.
All right.
He's a wee baby on a Barbie.
I didn't go eat your baby.
But no, it's like I don't have that much experience with this genre of video games. Castlevania was it was one of those titles that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
You ruined the joke, old man.
Yeah,
damn it.
I did.
It was one of those titles that I've never like gotten the chance to play on my own. Or
I will say I think that there's like the Castlevania like anniversary collection where it's got Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night that you can get in on most.
Yeah,
so
I really hate the way they did that real quick. They have two collections. They have a collection that has like most of the NES titles, including some that were like Japanese only, and then Symphony of the Night, Rondo of Blood are on another collection. Yeah. Thanks, Konami.
And it's literally the only two on the collection. It's not a collection.
It's
that's
two
a coupling.
games.
Yeah.
But
Akumajo Dracula X Chino Rondo, which is the Japanese version of the title.
But if we're going to go to like the modern Metroidvania, or
we're getting to it.
Gotcha.
We're getting to
okay.
it. So in between. Go ahead, Brady.
Real quick, because you mentioned Metroid Fusion at the same time another game out. This isn't exactly a Metroidvania, but it has a lot of the hallmarks. They just put it in the first-person shooter. So we had the Metroid Prime series,
games,
which basically did Metroidvania stuff, but in first-person shooter, which I thought was a very interesting.
That's why I laid the
it.
caveat down of most of these are 2D games, but like the Prime series, Retro Studios is probably my favorite second-party Nintendo developer
Yeah.
because they know how to take these Nintendo properties and do things with them that are respectful to the past while also updating them for a more modern sensibility as far as both storytelling and in game control and game design. Their Donkey Kong Country Return series is absolutely fantastic.
I've heard good things about it.
Something, and then like Metroid Prime 4, which still like it's been kind of put in the freezer for right now, so we're not sure where exactly it is yet. But its initial development team was disbanded and was handed back to Retro Studios.
Okay.
And so I'm very if we're going to get that, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
So after the the classic and then the post classic, which is the Game Boy Advance and GameCube and things like that. A few years later, we get a game that's independently made by I think one guy. I've never played it. Jay's probably heard of it, and I didn't know about it until I started doing research. And that is Cave Story. Have you played Cave Story, Jay?
Cave Story and Cave Story Plus. Yeah, it is very much so. And again, it's to me, it's action whether it's 2D or 3D. It's an action game with a solo protagonist. I think that's another hallmark. I think of these. You can have like side characters. Maybe, but it's always just that one person that is kind of like running the plot.
Yeah, that's usually how.
Like in Castlevania 3.
Yeah.
You can switch between all of them.
Yeah, but notice that's in the pre-area.
There's actually the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo DS. I think it's Aria of Sorrow is the second one. There's actually a hidden thing where you can play as it's Alucard and some Belmont.
It would have been Richter, I would imagine. Richter Belmont.
Well, this is like in the Aria of Sorrow.
I know
takes
one
place
has
in the
Julia.
future.
I know one of them is Julius Belmont.
Julius Belmont.
Yeah.
And,
There's so many Belmonts.
A third person who's kind of like Sypha, but not
Yeah.
Sypha, because this is all because those two games take place like in the far future. But yeah, so that's like the only one that I know of, and that's a second. Like you have to find that. Like that's a hidden thing, a hidden mode that you unlock.
Yeah,
Cave?
But again, Cave Story.
sorry.
Again,
It came
Cave
out
Story.
in 04.
Yeah, action game, solo protagonist, story driven, and backtracking. And that last bit is either one of the best things about the game or one of the worst things about the game. One of the reasons why I didn't want to go off with Prime was because I think that game relied too much on backtracking.
A little bit, yeah.
Where especially when you were in the original Prime, when you're having to re-find all the sigils to open up the Chozo Temple so that you can actually fight the Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Another thing when I was doing research, there were a couple of games that came up that I was kind of like, really? These are considered Metroidvania games? And I'm going to mention this, and then we're going to move on to modern indie games. Batman Arkham Asylum.
Yes.
I saw that. Yes,
That is. Yeah.
See that and Darksiders, because this is where we're breaking from 2D into 3D. But yeah, no, again, a solo protagonist in a very expansive place that you do a lot of particularly in Asylum. City and going further from that.
Open
world.
Yeah, I can see that with Asylum a little bit more. Darksiders, especially the first one, because I really only got around to playing the first one. I see that more as kind of a Legend of Zelda thing. More than
and see, that's where it kind of. But to me, it's like you finish an area and then you have an item and then you go on to the next one. If anything, it kind of almost reminded me more of Zelda 2. If we're gonna think about the Zelda series,
well, like there's also
you finished an area and part of finishing an area, finishing a temple in Zelda rather was getting that item, whereas getting an item in Darksiders felt more like an organic part of the game, which put it more to me in the Metroid and the Castlevania Symphony of the Night style. That's my take on it. I guess by kind of opposing, I'm dismissing yours, and I don't want to dismiss yours because I can also I can see the Zelda comparison. I do. I just don't think it goes there.
Well, we're about to get into modern indie games here. All right. So like the bridge in between Cave Story and the modern era is Shadow Complex. I think it came out around the PS3 era.
Yeah, it was Xbox exclusive, Xbox 360 exclusive. I'm sorry,
yeah, timed exclusive, I believe.
Yeah, I think eventually it came out on the other ones, but I remember when I had it, I played it on the Xbox.
Yeah, I didn't play that one. I saw it in my research. So, you want to talk about it a little bit?
It's really good. It's it doesn't really do anything like crazy, but like the story it tells is very interesting. It starts off, you're just a guy going, like, hanging out, like you're going with like your girlfriend into the woods, like into this forest area to just kind of spend some time, and she gets kidnapped, and you come across this like hidden complex, and you get kind of embroiled into that. It does a really good job of like, you get powerful, and then you get like you get more and more powerful because you find more and more tech, basically. Because you start out just as kind of a regular dude, and it does a lot of shooting because you like have guns and stuff, so it's a lot of like range stuff. But then like you eventually get like really powerful, so like it amps it up, and it does a really good job with that. And for it being kind of a for being, I don't know if it was an indie game, but it wasn't like a big release or anything. It was just like a downloadable game.
Right.
Like the graphics are like really, really good on it.
It's been re-released. It's on PS4 digitally too right now, and I might check it out.
I might need to re-download that and play it because I always had fun with it. And like I said, there is a point where you get like really powerful and you're like doing crazy things, and like there's a part where you get to like the end of this like bridge thing, and like there's just water over it and you can't get to it, and you eventually get these like things these like leg greave things that you put on your legs, and you could just start running, and then you power up, and then you just run across the water to the next part, and it's like, oh shit, that's really like, there's really, really cool moments where you like get the thing that you need to get there, because you're like, how the hell, like, because you literally from the screen you can't see the other side, so like that's how big, like it's like a lake or something. But it was a really cool one, and that's one that's always kind of stuck in my head of like when it comes, whenever anybody mentions Metroidvanias, that's one that really sticks into my head. Before we started doing this, like when we mentioned this is what we're going to do, I remember this game. I remember it was a Metroid. I literally had to like look it up to see what the name was, because Shadow Complex is kind of,
that was in, I think, a lot of top 10 lists or whatever. I looked at all 243 games that are in this subgenre.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And I picked from the best ones, or the ones that I've played that I know of. Another game that came out like a couple of years after that was Dust: An Elysian Tale. I played it on the 360. It was actually one of the first games I like digitally downloaded. I usually didn't do that, but it was on sale and it looked really cool. And you played like a really cute, spirit fox or something like that. Jay, you ever played Dust?
I know of it, never sat down.
Yeah. It inspired another game that's on this list that we'll talk about in more detail. But that one's really good. And then a year after that, in 2013, Guacamelee came out.
Guacamole, yeah.
Good.
And its sequel, Guacamelee 2, which seems appropriate. So, very nice.
Where you play a luchador.
Luchador family. That's one where it breaks from the typical, you only one person. You can co-op up to, I think, 4 people in that game.
Yeah,
co-op
in that game is hard.
I can imagine.
Yeah, doing a Metroidvania style game with more than one person on the screen can be difficult.
And then Strider 2014 came out. And they improved on the original game, and that game is got all the Metroidvania qualities to it. Backtracking, you had to get certain powers to progress in certain levels. I stopped playing it for a minute, and then I forgot where I was, so I'm going to start all over because just how the game is.
There was one, and if I would have thought of it, I would have done more research at the time. It's kind of a Metroidvania, I think. I remember getting it for maybe the PlayStation 3. I downloaded it. But all I remember is like the main mechanic was that you could switch your character between being red and green. And it also had like a bullet hell type thing with like bosses and different things. Because if you were red projectiles didn't hurt you, and if you were green projectiles didn't hurt you. And
it's sort of like Ikaruga, but for Metroidvania.
Yeah, but it is like a platformer, and it was very hard, so I didn't get very far into it. So I don't know how much it is. Like, I don't know. I can't remember if you if you like unlocked more powers and different things to open up different areas, or if it was just more of a kind of a, you had this big map that you were going through.
Right.
So I could be wrong about that one being a Metroidvania, and I don't even remember. And maybe somebody will tell us next week that it was this game.
It might be one of the ones I'm about to mention. In fact, I think if it is, it would be
possible.
Axiom Verge, but I don't think that's going to be the same.
It wasn't that one.
Axiom Verge takes the horror element of Metroid, because if you think about Metroid, you're alone on a creepy, desolate planet with just like basically bugs and other things, no help to call for. Let's take that, let's up the visuals and make them night fucking marish, and that's Axiom Verge. Holy shit.
I'm going to be playing that soon.
It's yes.
Yeah, I need to get on that.
If you are a fan of the genre, Axiom Verge to me is like, if we want to bring chalkboard terms, that's in my top 5 of like Metroidvania style.
Definitely going to have to jump on that.
Just for the horror and atmosphere of that game.
I might have to look into that one.
So Ethan mentioned Ori. So go ahead, Ethan.
It started out with Ori and the Blind Forest, made by Moon Studios.
Mm-hmm.
This is more so like one of their first, like, this is like their experimental title. I didn't really know.
The experiment was a success. Continue.
Yes. I didn't really know like if this is like its own like standalone game or a part of like a subgenre. But now that I think about it,
Right.
it has a lot of backtracking. Like
it's a Metroidvania game.
I think after like the first boss, you're able to, it then opens up to like the open world aspect of it, was like this large convoluted map. You go to different areas that allows you to progress in areas across the entire map and to get to the bosses of those areas.
Have you played the second one?
Will-O-Wisps. Yep. This is probably one of my favorite purchases for the Nintendo Switch. Everything about it is phenomenal, like graphics and visuals, everything from the gameplay. The bosses were absolutely horrible to fight against my first go around, because it has that like difficulty a little bit of Metroid games, where it's like you have to go over and over again until you accidentally beat them.
So I know Jay's. I'm pretty sure Jay's a big fan of Hollow Knight. I don't know if you played it.
I've played it. I played it a little bit. It was more so
That one I really need to play.
I picked it up.
That one's really good.
I picked it up during the pandemic, and I kind of fell off of it, but I need to revisit it.
One of the things about this genre is you can connect another genre, or you can connect another game series type to these things, and they can generally work because the standard gameplay for Metroidvanias, especially the good ones, obviously, is that they're very easy to pick up and grok. It's like you have typically platforming, 2D side scrolling action, shoot the bad guys, stuff like that. In this case, if you take the Metroidvania style and you cross it with Dark Souls, you get Hollow Knight.
Oh,
You get one of the best Dark Soul clones you're ever going to get in 2 dimensions.
Yeah,
That game
rough.
is challenging.
It's rough.
I hated it. Like I could barely.
Of course you hated it. Every game's got to be marshmallows and fluffernutter before you be able to play it. God dang it. Okay, sorry, continue.
So we have Hollow Knight. I never played Shovel Knight. I don't know.
Shovel Knight, no. And
Yeah,
the reason
Shovel
why
Knight.
Shovel Knight is more
Just a platformer.
is more DuckTales. for
Yeah.
me.
Oh,
it's a
okay.
platform.
Like-
you go. You have an overmap, and you go to a level. And
Gotcha.
then you go to a
Yeah.
boss. Like it's more straightforward.
Right. And I'm not going to end on the next one, but we're going to end on the one after that because it brings everything full circle. And the next one I'm going to mention is Dead Cells. Now, I played the fuck out of this game, and I enjoyed it very, very much.
I think, Brady, you're the only one of us at the table who hasn't played it, right?
Yeah, I'm not. There are. I don't know. There's things about that game that just make me like I'm not real big on the roguelike, and that's what that one adds to the Metroidvania.
The procedurally generated.
Yeah, the procedurally
dungeon.
generated. Like Hades is the only one of those that I really like, and it's because like the characters are so strong and like the gameplay loop to me, like I really enjoy that. But like but that one I had, it was the characters and the mythology and everything that got me into that one. So like with those, I'm not super big on.
I will say for a roguelike, I'm usually not a fan of roguelikes either. This is one of my favorite games of that genre and also of the Metroidvania genre. The gameplay is very, very, very addictive.
It is.
It's extremely addictive until you beat it.
Which I have. I've sat down and played it 3 hours without noticing how long I've played it.
Yeah, you lose time like very easily playing that game.
For me, again, this one now bolts on rogue aspects in the fact that the game is made. It's not the same gameplay twice.
Right.
It's made procedurally, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So yeah. Just play it. Just play. I could go on for about another 10 minutes, talking about intricacies. But if you've played a Metroidvania game and you love the genre, play that.
Yeah, all the unlockables. There's so many unlockables for the game. And what I want to end the game on is what I would like to call the full circle here, and that's Bloodstained.
There's an actual true full circle, but Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, because they also
Curse of the Moon,
because they did Curse of the Moon, which is more in the style of
16-bit,
Castlevania 3.
Oh, 3,
where it's so you have multiple characters and how it plays out, and there's different ways to go about doing it if he goes with those different players.
Right.
I absolutely love. Is it Itagaki?
I think so.
If
I'm
I
not
got
sure.
this man's name wrong, I am so sorry. But Itagaki's studio, which, unlike Keiji Inafune and what he did with Mighty Number 9, trying to ape off of Mega Man series, the Mega Man series, Itagaki understands what his games are about, and he just gave you more and gave you better. Curse of the Moon and Ritual of the Night are just absolutely exceptional games.
They are really good.
They're just very well done games, but in both of their genres,
and very difficult.
That's one I haven't heard of, so I might have to do.
You definitely need to check them out.
They're
on the Switch.
Actually for the Switch, get the Curse of the Moon one. That's the one that apes off of the 8-bit Castlevania games. That is maybe my favorite download only game on the Switch. So that's just a little recommendation for there. But I was about to call it Dark of the Moon. That's Transformers. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
That's rough.
Curse of the Moon. Yeah.
So you mentioned that there was another one for Full Circle.
So for Full Circle, Metroid 5, Metroid Dread.
I haven't played Dread yet.
It is. I love it so much.
Metroid 5, to me is the complete refinement and the end of it is properly the end of the Metroid series. The Metroid series creator literally said this is it. This is the story we wanted to tell. This is how we wanted to end it. The story beats in that I think are absolutely fascinating. The best thing they do in that game is you have voice acting from everybody except one person, and that's Samus. And the reason why not having Samus not speak her voice is you can imprint any voice you want onto that character, which it connects you more to that character. They made their mistake, and it was a Team Ninja. It was handed off to Team Ninja with Metroid Other M. I think a lot of also
I was about to make a joke about.
Yeah. It's
so much better when she can talk, and this strong character is constantly under the thumb of someone else.
They aped too much off of the remakes of Tomb Raider that they made, where the entire half hour of those games, at least of the first game, wasn't Rise of the Tomb Raider. It was I can't remember what she's like. I can do this. I can do that. She slaughtered 4 guys who tried to kill her.
Right.
And then she's now she's got to walk across a board and I can do this.
When they rebooted it, I think it was just called Tomb Raider.
Just Tomb Raider. Okay.
I have to say, I'm pretty sure they had Samus say 1 or 2 lines in Dread.
There's her screaming, and that's it. The voice actress is just screaming.
I'm pretty. It's whenever she gets to the point where she meets the bird,
the old Chozo, yeah,
she's talking with the priest. I'm pretty sure she said she has 1 or 2 lines of dialogue.
That's entirely possible, but you know what those lines aren't in? Any discernible language. Again, it's more along the lines of, if that is the case, I don't remember it that way. Maybe it might be Metroid Other M trying to make me not remember when they actually gave a voice actress those lines and directed her horribly, in my opinion. because I don't want to put that all on the voice actress.
But it's not like she's speaking English. She's speaking
But
in
it's
the, in
but
their-
again
their
with
language.
her being mostly silent, I'll find that as the middle edge there. With her being mostly silent, you can put whatever her voice sounds like in your head again, which creates a bit deeper connection in the brain of the player, which to me I think is a lot better. It's the reason why I'm glad when Breath of the Wild came out, everybody's got voice lines except Link, and Link is literally like that.
Yeah.
But again, once again, fantastic boss battles.
Yeah.
If I would have to say one thing, I like the Emmy stages where you're running from the robots and there's the actual survival horror aspect of that. Being said, I can totally get someone playing those sections over and over again. It's like, I fucking can't stand this shit.
Those give me so much anxiety.
That's the part that made me not want to play that game.
Okay.
Like I can understand like in something like Metroid Fusion where it's like really a more storyline thing, but it's just where.
And I think also that's what they were working with, because you had that horror element in Fusion and they wanted to ratchet up a little bit more. Again, I liked it, but I can I can even respect and to realize, okay, I totally understand why you don't, because you want to have your fast-paced shooty action, all these other things. But when you have to have horror, you have to add helplessness. And when you've been, Sarah Connor in a tank, it's really hard to go from that to helpless. I think it worked with the way the story did it, but if someone has a problem with that, I can completely respect that.
Bianca actually got on to me because when it came to like the Emmy fights and you have that opportunity to like counter the attack, I would consistently like miss and just scream. And then she would come in from the bed. She's like, "Why are you screaming?" I'm like, "I'm playing a game."
It's like, woman, you play this.
She's trying to sleep and you're fucking screaming about a video game.
Fast fact, the timing on that is always different.
I know. I hate it.
It's not like it's like count 3 beats every time and do it. No, it can be 1 beat. It can be 7 beats.
Jesus.
Yeah. So you literally have to have like beyond cat-like reflexes to do that.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Dread is a fantastic game.
That game that I was talking about is called Outland.
Outland. Okay.
It's a game it's actually made by Ubisoft, and it was on the 360, not on the PlayStation 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I would have to do more research as to whether or not, but I remember it being it's got some of the hallmarks, but I don't know if it's got all of the hallmarks, because like I said, it's a very hard game, because it also has like bullet hell things in it where you have to constantly switch back and forth.
Right.
Because sometimes even like you'll be fighting a boss and like some platform it's red and blue. Some platforms will be blue, some platforms will be red, and you can't unless you're that color, you can't like sit on those.
Right.
Like it was very, very difficult, and I didn't get very far in it, but I did enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, let me put this question to the table. So Metroid science fiction, Castlevania gothic horror fantasy. Which do you prefer as far as theming?
Ooh, that is tough.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say Metroid because I haven't played a Castlevania game. So.
There's something to be said that you have access to Castlevania games, yet you don't go towards them. So again, you play the things that you feel more comfortable with, maybe.
I think,
possibly.
Like, I think Castlevania, because it's just so different. And I played way more. Like, I played a few Metroid games, but I played a lot of Castlevania games. And the Metroidvania Castlevania games. I really haven't played a whole lot of like the early Castlevania games. But it's such a different thing than what you see. Like even it's like you don't see like that kind of horror type thing, and it's not even like scary. I can't play this because like I don't do like survival horror and different kind of horror games like that. But like but it does have that feel. It's just so different than what's normally out there. I think
I'd have to say probably gothic horror.
So Castlevania gothic horror style.
Because I mean, like Dead Cells is high fantasy in a way, but it's got a lot of gothic horror elements in it as well. So probably gothic horror. Although horror and sci-fi for me and anything is like really close to depending on what the thing
is good too. Like that's a regular Sophie's choice right there.
Right.
So.
Right.
Not to split the table, but eventually my choice does split the table. I would go with the Metroids because there's that feeling of isolation, particularly going all the way back to Metroid itself, where it's literally just you, and you have to figure this out on your own. There's something about that is just it interests me. It kind of scares me a little bit.
In Metroid games, there's like isolation is a big thing. Even in like Metroid Prime, like it's very isolating. Like you always feel alone. That was one of the in Prime, like that's one of the more effective things is that first time where you charge up your blast and you hit and it's close to a wall and you see the reflection of your face and you're like, oh wow.
Or like if you're like a place with like electricity is going on, you see that. They again, Retro Studios has a great eye for detail too.
That's a big thing that Metroid does well. But like they both have very interesting atmospheres is I guess what I'm saying.
All right. Let me throw another question. Favorite era of Metroidvanias: the 16-bit, the PlayStation 1, maybe PlayStation 2 era, the early Xbox to say like the early Xbox at the beginning to the PS, I would say 3 and Xbox 360 era, the PS4 to like the PS4.
And
like what era of them do you think really we got some of the best titles in these series? And also, the PC throughout, but even then, like PC era to me has two divides. Everything before Steam and then Steam. Because what Steam allowed for, and they've dropped the ball on, but they allowed for indie developers to really have a great place to showcase their talent. It was also became a horrible cesspool wasteland after a while.
Right.
But you still some of the better indie talents got their start, I think, in a lot of ways because Steam opened up this as an avenue to get it in people's hands. So again, what eras of gaming do we think are the best?
I would say historically, I mean, we have to have the originals to get to where we are, but I think like the past like 10 years, we've had some of the best Metroidvania games that we've ever had. Outside of course, like Symphony of the Night, which is stands alone, but I enjoy the modern era more because there's more options mainly.
Yeah,
quality games.
My favorite area is definitely the era when there was a Castlevania coming out all the time on the Game Boy Advance or the Nintendo DS, because that's the ones that I played the most.
Right,
like
that was almost like a yearly thing.
Every year almost,
and they were all pretty good.
Right,
and there was enough variety. Like
they had
they had a lot of similarity, but even then, they felt that there was variety.
On the Game Boy Advance, they started to kind of get the same because you had like Harmony of Dissonance and some around that. I think it was it Circle of the Moon? Those were in that era. Those were kind of the same. And then once they got into the Sorrow games, like the Aria of Sorrow, and I should have done research, didn't. Fuck it, sorry. Write me a strong word
it's
email.
It's on brand for you to not do that.
Yeah, you never keep notes, Brady.
No, I don't.
He never makes them.
I either make all the notes or none of the notes.
Yeah.
He don't even try to look on our papers for notes. Good God.
Out of 31 episodes, this is the first time I've written anything down on a piece of paper.
I do write notes sometimes, but not all the time. And today wasn't one of those days.
He brought up a point. So you were very passionate about this. This goes like again behind the curtain for everybody. About 2.5 weeks ago, you dropped this in the bucket. This is something that's very passionate for you. So let me ask you this point blank: is this your favorite genre of video games?
It's definitely my favorite genre of action games. Okay. In fact, I would like to mention another modern game that's not 2D or a platformer that also kind of fits into the genre, and that's Control.
I saw that like going through like the difference.
I hadn't considered that until you mentioned it. Yeah, I think yeah. Okay.
Because in Control you have to get to a certain part to unlock abilities to be able to go back to unlock more areas that you need to go to, and it's a back and forth with that. And any game that improves on one game that came out 20 years prior by the name of Psyops, which is also not in the same vein, but Control is amazing. And one of my favorite games of all time.
I still need to look into it.
Yeah, Control is great.
Yeah, that's on my list, but I don't know if I'll ever get to it. But you know, we've all shown that like this is something that this is a genre that we really like. So what would we say is like our favorite? Like what draws us to that this Metroidvania style of game.
Well,
I know if I see a game and I see that it's basic. If somebody explains this, this game is a Metroidvania, I go, well, let me look at this. I might get this. I might not eventually play it because these games are very time intensive.
I'll just do mine real quick. If the title has the word Metroid in it, I'm buying it.
Yeah.
Because I've had so many good memories with the games throughout the entirety of the series. I've had frustrations. Some haven't met the mark that I wanted to, but I've never played a bad Metroid game.
I'll say this. One of the reasons is because the genre is as open as it is to interpretation, is very narrow compared to other genres. If I say platformer to somebody, they're going to go, oh, Super Mario Bros. And I'll go, Jax and Daxter.
Yeah.
And there's other genres that you can name. They're like action adventure games, and be like Assassin's Creed or whatever. So if you say Metroidvania, I have a pretty good idea what kind of game it is, and I think one of the reasons why I enjoy them so much is I grew up on now retro video games and playing a lot of side-scrolling platforming games that were not on the PlayStation 1, and with the exception of maybe a couple. And so I think that's the main reason why I really enjoy the subgenre.
I gotta say, it's kind of like the back and forth for me. Like I like open world games, but at the same time, I also like the kind of games where it's like it's not an overly large map to where you can still go back and forth from area to area and get different things you want able to get access to.
Yeah, there's something for finishing a game and getting like something out of finishing a game.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about like most Castlevanias, they have like you hit the start button and it goes, or the select button and it goes to the map, and you get to see, okay, I've been to this place, I've been to this place.
Right.
The exploration, and like you'll come across a place and you'll be like, oh, dang, I can't jump high enough to get to that, but I know that there's going to be something there. I need to remember that. And then when you beat a boss, or you find, or you figure out a puzzle or whatever the hell you have to do, and you get this item in, and you're like, oh, I can jump higher now. Okay. Now let's look at the map and let's go back and I have to go back through here and find, okay, I got to the thing. Oh, I can reach it. No, now I get this little extra thing now. Oh, that's cool. Like that I think is what really draws me. And that's also why I don't, especially now, I don't play video games as much anymore, period.
Right.
But I really, like I like Hollow Knight, I really want to play. There's another one, Blasphemous.
Blasphemous is also.
I want to play that.
Yeah.
But I'm hesitant because I know that they are very intensive, and you get into it and you're exploring and it's something. Games like these are games that I really like to 100%, and it's going to take a long while, and I know I'm just going to pick it up and I'm going to be like, man, and then I want to stop. So it's also one of the things that like makes me hesitant to get them.
Right.
But that's more of a me thing,
right.
and I'm just not. I don't play games as much anymore, so there's that too.
I like it when the games allow for sequence breaks, like going back to Super Metroid. Like there's some areas, I need the space jump for this, or you have this section of wall that's just close enough, and if you practice that wall jump enough, you can get up there, and now you're in areas of the game that you're not supposed to be into.
Yeah, OG so Metroid had one of those. Yeah, where you're not supposed to be there.
I shouldn't be here, but I'm here now.
Yep.
Deal with it.
I've never opened a map as many times as I have playing Metroid Dread. Like trying to get through the magma section of the game is like, okay, so
that was fun, wasn't it?
Like I know I'm supposed to be here, but how do I get this the magma suit? I'm like opening the map, the main areas. Like okay, I've been there. That's shaded in, but I don't have the thing to get there. So how do I get the thing to get there and get there? It's just so much backtracking. But it's like that the novelty that I kind of like.
In OG Metroid, if you use the bombs right, you could get to Ridley before you could fight Ridley. But it's just a statue.
Oh yeah.
That's funny. I like
that's
that.
like the wall jump in Super Mario 64. You get into the castle with no stars.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts, anybody, or are we getting to?
Can we go around? So, my favorite Metroidvania is Super Metroid.
Probably Shadow Complex is mine. I think that's mine. But I also like a lot of those Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS ones. Aria of Sorrow is really, really good.
Ori and the Blind Forest.
It's a tie between Symphony of the Night and Dead Cells.
I think those are all very solid titles.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Gentlemen, we got through this very quickly, so I would like to introduce a semi-new feature to the show. It's called "Did Ethan Do What Jay Told Him to Do Last Week?" So,
oh God.
So, if we remember from episode 30, Chalkboard, top 5 horror movies of all time, I asked Ethan to watch The Exorcist.
He's shaking his head.
Why did you do that?
Ethan Skinner, did you watch The Exorcist?
I don't blame you if you didn't.
I honestly didn't.
You didn't watch The Exorcist.
That's good on you.
Mainly,
it's
just I didn't have the time to do
That's the reason.
I summon the seasons of winter. I summon the forces of winter to smite Ethan Skinner at this moment. The power of winter I summon ye!
That's terrible.
Jesus Christ.
There you go. Okay, so soon the frostbite of winter shall bite upon you, and you will be laid no more.
Okay.
We'd like to thank all of you for
Staying
listening.
through that
Yeah.
part,
Listening
especially.
to-
I gotta stop a strong word email.
Okay.
Aria of Sorrow is the Game Boy Advance, the first one, and then Dawn of Sorrow is
Dawn
the
of
sequel.
Sorrow.
Dawn of Sorrow is the one that I played.
Harmony of Dissonance is one, right?
It doesn't have anything to do with those two, but it is. I played that one. It's on the Game Boy Advance.
Okay.
It was like the second Game Boy Advance
Okay.
Castlevania, I think that came
Cool
out.
beans.
Nice. Uh-huh.
That hero's name was Soma Cruz, wasn't it?
In the Aria and Dawn of Sorrow, yes.
Okay, cool
It was like Justa Belmont
It's Justa.
in Harmony of Dissonance.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for listening to Travelers on the Omnibus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been-
So, Jody, tell us about Fearology.
Fearology is a podcast that I upload about once a month on. I'm currently working on the second act of the pseudo comedy musical Seven Friendly Sins
By the Digital Devil.
by the Digital Devil.
Oh, okay.
And this one is not about shit people like the first part was. This one is more about demons taking over the town. So that ought to be pretty cool.
Cool.
Nice.
And Fearology is on Spotify and Anchor.
I like how we always make him do his own plug.
Yeah.
It's been
We
like
don't have to, but he was.
But,
about
like,
to-
for the past,
he literally was about to fucking
month and a half.
This is one of our shortest episodes we're ever gonna have, and then he was just like trying to bow out immediately.
I
It's like,
forgot.
Yeah,
I
he was-
legit forgot
There you go.
about plugs. Whiskey
go.
and Wrestling is a podcast by
Joey, just do all the plugs.
Yeah, now you have to do all the plugs.
Michael Hill
I'm
and
okay with
Jason
that.
Holder, when they're not walking out during certain wrestling matches on AEW tonight, talk
Tony
about
Khan, stop putting Marina Shafir on Dynamite.
We're always mad about the fact that they don't do enough women's wrestling, except when they do women's wrestling,
They do it
They
badly.
then provide us
You
horrors.
She is literally your worst wrestler. on the
WWE
card.
got some of its lowest ratings only because they were against what? They were against like.
They were against Monday Night Football and Halloween, so the kids are out trick or
And
treating.
if it wasn't for a rain out, they would have been against
The World Series.
The World Series.
Jesus.
Yeah,
But they still hit like 1.5
like
million
it's
views.
like fourth or fifth lowest ratings of all time for Raw.
If the-
And the SmackDown ratings were shit because
Right.
Fox decided, hey, the World Series is more important than SmackDown, which they are right. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it was the best SmackDown of like 3 years.
Jesus.
Whiskey and Wrestling. Check them out. They're on all the platforms.
And check us out when we talk about wrestling, when we call it Whiskey and Wrestling West Coast, even though it's technically further
That
east
is-
than them.
Jay does that.
You do it too.
Nobody else
Suss
has
it.
agreed to
You do
that.
it- you do it too.
I just talk about wrestling because I like talking about wrestling.
Kevin Shelton and Jared Hubbard host a show called Silence Your Cell Phones. If you want to know what's going on in the world of streaming, in the wide world of YouTube streaming as well, check those fellas out. They're on all the platforms.
And movie theaters.
And also, they go to movie
I was
theaters
about
to
say,
watch
did-
movies.
Did they change formats to where they just do YouTube?
They just
stuff?
do YouTube
They just
stuff.
talk about YouTube.
They just talk
culture
about
now.
YouTube videos.
Yes, that's Blake Shelton and Janet Garcia. look her up. Look her up. But yeah, no. Kevin Shelton and Jared Hubbard, Silence Your Cell Phones.
Do we have any other podcasts?
I'd like to thank. Actually, wait a minute. I'll take over this one real
Yeah.
quick. So, to our again mentioned earlier, Kevin Gallo, our friend Kevin Gallo on Twitch at Ronin Rooster and on YouTube as Kevin Gallo. They have been running their weekly. Not this week due to illness and other horrible factors. Get well soon, guys. But they've been running their Cyberpunk Red game online.
Nice.
They are going to a club called Project Night Shadow.
Ooh.
Project is all in capitals and the C is replaced with a K.
Of course.
No, it has nothing to do with CD Projekt Red, but you know, whatever. But yeah, they're hopefully going to have some fun over there in that time. So we're going to see what happens there as well. So I've been really digging the game, guys. Hope you having good times and good story beats. And you take it to the edge, but don't go too far off it. Once
again, we'd like to thank Greg Spanier and everybody at McNarb Gaming for letting us use this wonderful space for podcasting.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. McNarb Gaming.
I picked up the wonderful Tales of the Red. It's a Cyberpunk Red, a source book. It's on street stories and some of the things that are going on in the streets of Night City in the 2040s. So I'm very excited to kind of get into that and hopefully give us some ideas for hopefully a future Cyberpunk game in the future, possibly in the year 2045, but we'll see.
Brady, what does McNarb Gaming have that our listeners need?
Well, they have they have magic cards if you like magic. Pokemon. They got Pokemon.
They have magic cards if you don't like magic, but have to keep playing it because you've invested so much in the game. But whatever.
Sunk cost fallacy, bitches. They got D&D stuff. A lot of different kinds of RPGs. Greg really likes RPGs, so he buys a lot of stuff for RPGs. Board games. They got a lot of board games.
What's that?
They just got not Seven Wonders. Splendor Duel in, which is a 2-player kind of. I wouldn't say it's Splendor because it's a different kind of game.
It has gems.
So
but it has a weird grid that you move shit on. It's just
I've heard it looks interesting. I don't know if you like 2-player games, maybe try it out. They also got some boxes, some big special boxes of what's that game?
Like they did get
the
they
deck
get a
building
bunch of,
with the spaceships.
Star Realms Deluxe Edition
Deluxe.
Nova something.
Yeah, with everything that's Star Realms in it.
Foiled. All of it foiled.
So if you're really into Star Realms but you don't have everything, maybe look at that.
Or if you have Star Realms and have everything but none of it's foiled.
Yeah, just buy it twice.
Buy it twice. So nice the price.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
They also have those things that like you put them together, and as you keep putting them all together, they form a picture. How do we reference that? I'm trying to remember. I can't.
It's not like cryptograms.
It's not
That's something
cryptograms,
different.
No. Not color forms.
It's not Enigma. That was the stuff the Germans used in World War II to hide their messages.
Yeah. Benedict Cumberbatch broke that code.
He's very good.
Did Tom Hanks break a code once?
No, he didn't break the code. He just figured it out.
Oh. No, that was Nicolas Cage. He was like over the Navajo people who did the code talking thing.
Oh, that one. That one.
No, it wasn't the Navajo. It's just that he was on northwestern United States Native American land in a place called Crystal Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some bikers and a hippie cult.
Mm-hmm.
And
and then he got sacrificed for the damn bees.
Yeah.
That happened.
Yeah, then him and his girlfriend stole a baby out of the rich people's house.
And then him and John Travolta switched faces.
More than once.
I think that movie was called Gimme That Face.
Yeah. By John Woo.
Yeah.
How long are we going to keep this bit going?
Just say it.
I don't know.
I'm not saying it.
Just
Fuck
say
all
it.
of you.
Just
I'm not
say
giving you. No.
Just say it.
Say
No.
it.
Say it.
Come on, Brady.
Say it.
Say it.
No.
I'll have the bite of winter upon you as well.
Sure.
They have puzzles and shit.
There we go.
There
You
we
said
go.
the catchphrase.
There we go. Why didn't you want to do? You
Because I am not an animal to perform tricks for you people.
Dance, monkey! Say the line!
It was not by my hand that I was once again given flesh. I was sent here by humans to wish to pay me tribute.
For travelers on the omnibus.
I eat cereal
I've
with
been
orange
Jody
juice.
Kite.
I've been Ethan Skinner.
I'm Brady Davis.
I'm Dracula from Symphony of the Night. What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. Bye-bye, everyone.